with QDA Miner and WordStat. My name is Tony Ross and I'm the Director of Communications for Provalis and the moderator for today's webinar. Provalis CEO Normand Pelado will be leading the webinar. His presentation should last about 45 minutes. We will then move to a question and answer session. So please think of your questions as we're going through it and use the chat, the chat box on the bottom of your bottom of the right screen to ask questions. You can type them in during the webinar if you want, and we'll save them to the end. Before we begin, I have one other little piece of business. I want to advise you that we will be holding a 3-day training session August 16th, 17th, and 18th at our office in Montreal. The training session will feature 2 days of QDA Miner and 1 day of WordStat. To register, you can go to our website or follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. I'll now pass the webinar over to Normand. Can't hear him.
Okay, so now you should see my screen. What I will show you is I will try to show you 2 different tools, QDA Miner and WordStat, and I will try to look at also when to use one, when to use the other one, and what are the different tools that exist to analyze open-ended. If I will use 2 examples, but one thing that you need to know is that QDA Miner itself is the one that will import the data and allow you to prepare it. So I will show you how to prepare it. And typically, when you start QDA Miner, you start with a project like that. And let's assume that you want to create a new project from the survey data. You will have to select Create New Project like that, and you will get this list. And the second one will likely be the one that you will use to import your survey data. And if you click on that, you will have several choices. We do support direct connection to your survey, web survey platforms. Actually, several survey platforms like SurveyMonkey, Qualtrics, SurveyGizmo, Voxco, Question Pro, which are 5 different platforms used for survey. If you're using a different platforms, it would be nice for you to maybe type it in the chat box so that we could have an idea what kind of other platform you may be interested for us to support, because we are looking at other platforms and try to see whether we could implement other connection to other platforms. Okay, so those are 5 survey platforms. The current that QDA Miner 5 support. We also support SSS, which is a XML standard for survey data that has been developed in the UK and that is used by many software. But many, quite often, if your platform is not here, or if you do your own survey with something else, you will likely be able to get the data out of this survey platform using either an Excel spreadsheet, CSV, or tab separated value file. Some people will also use Microsoft Access. So those are alternate format if you are using a web survey and this platform is not listed in what we have here. Okay, so what I will use today is a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, because it will allow me to show you exactly what it may look like. And I do have a survey here. I will open it for now. What is important is that you cannot import it if it's open in Excel. So I'll close it, but I want to see what it looks like. So basically, if it is formatted this way, and it is important that if you create an Excel spreadsheet, that you make sure that it is formatted the proper way. So for example, I have the first row contains variable names, ID, where, gender, age group, ethnicity, job, skills. Okay, so this is a 7-question survey. And below, right from the second row, you have the answers. Now, the easiest way to import from an Excel spreadsheet is this way. If you have extra columns, for example, a description, or any, not extra columns, but extra rows, for example, then the best thing would be to remove them or put them before the first row so that the first row will remain the variable name. If you have the question itself, for example, here if I had a long description, so the wording of the questions, you can keep it this way because QD Miner will actually convert that to something smaller, but it will keep the description as a for this new variable. Okay, so this is the data. If I will close that and I will try to import that, and I will open that and I will actually override this one. This one is something that I just did for some quick test. So I will create a new project, and typically you end up with a dialog like that. This is when you are importing from an Excel spreadsheet because it will allow you to preview this and select all range. Or if you had some extra information that you don't want to include, for example, you start on row 5, for example, for the questions, then you could type a range there, just like you would do in Excel. Okay. Now, if you are importing from a survey platform, if you connect, for example, for SurveyMonkey, the software will first ask you which survey to import because it will get the list of all the survey you have in your account. Then it will ask you whether you want to import all the questions or only some questions. Then by clicking yes, the software will create a project that will contain the data set. So here I will import the full data sets. And what you, it's a quite big survey, 6,000 responses. Okay, 6,048 response. And the software will automatically try to guess what type of data it is. So if it's all numbers, it will import that as numeric, which it did here, but all of those other ones have been imported as string variables. And some of them, like ethnicity and skills, have been imported as documents, and I can actually see what they are, and I can move from one to the other this way. Okay, so those are my columns that has been transformed into variables. This is actually the cases, all cases. Now, I will try to prepare this. So for example, job here has been imported as a string variable because it was quite short. Somehow ethnicity, someone probably typed something long, so if it has been converted into a document. But this one, because it was too short, it guessed that it may not have been something to code, so I can since I want to code that, I need to transform that into a document because documents are something that can be coded in QDA Miner. Okay, so to transform that, I simply click on job, right click, transform that into documents, and now you will see that it will appear here at the top, and that rather than having the response, I will simply have a document like that. So let me override that. Okay, so you see, I no longer see the response there, but I can actually see it here. Okay. Now, we also have some nominal variable like gender, and I can get some statistics on that. And I know that there's only 2 values, and I wanted to transform that into a nominal. And the reason you may want to transform that into a nominal is that, for example, WordStat will require you to have a nominal variable if you want to compare. Okay, and nominal will be typically numerical value, but with a label associated with them. But QD Miner will show them to you as labels anyway. So if I click OK, the software will actually override it. Okay, but and now rather than being able to edit that and type what I want, the software will allow me to select it. Okay, so it did create 2 values because it had 2 values, and let me keep it to male. But the same thing could be done with age group. The problem, if you simply do a single transformation, is that the software will actually sort them and categorize them not necessarily in the proper order. For example, less than 14 should go at the top, not there where it is. So since it is an ordinal variable, what is important is that you could when you transform the string variable into a nominal ordinal, you can tell the software that it is an ordinal and that you want to order the string value. So what it will do is that it will show you the value, allow you to move it correctly, click OK, and now if it is transformed into a nominal variable properly ordered. Okay, and the reason is that if you do some statistical testing by applying some either interval or ordinal statistics to look at whether there's some change associated with ages, then it will be properly ordered, and you will get the statistics. Also, the graphics will be ordered correctly. Okay, so this is data preparation. We actually have a tutorials online on how to import and prepare survey data. So you could also refer to that if you want to see how this is done. Now, QDA Miner is a more manual coding approach, while WordStat is a more automatic coding approach, but they could be used together. So let me actually try to see what we could do, and I will actually start it with jobs. Okay, so I will start to look at some of those items, and I will show you the different way one could work with the QDA Miner to code responses. When you have a small survey, you could actually go from one response to the other and simply create the codes as you see as needed. For example, let me create a code for job. It will be student, and I will put that under a jobs category. Okay. Now I could assign it simply by selecting it and dropping it there. And here, auto worker, I may wanted to create a code for that, but it's and I would add again another code, say auto worker job add, and then again I could tag that. So as you see, it's quite time consuming, but I also have students that appear here. So one way to code more quickly is to simply try to search, and I could tell the software that I want to search for every time student is being mentioned, and I will search for the paragraph. That's okay, and I'm searching in the job responses. So if I do that, the software will then go through all my responses, and I have almost I have 1,176 cases where people have mentioned that they were students, not necessarily only students, but they mentioned students. So let me code that. I already have a code here, so I will select students, and I will click search, and it will go and it will code all of those responses the proper way. But I could also type, let's do nurse or nursing, or and I could type several expressions there with Boolean expression, and again I could do a search. The software will find some responses, 22 hits. I can create from here a code. Let's do nurses. Sorry, nurse as a job. Again, well, I can assign different colors, and then I can code that. Okay, so the text search is interesting because it allows you to go very quickly through a lot of responses and search for a reference to that, and then you could code that. But here I simply look within one variable, but if you have several variables where this could occur, you could select all of them, and the software will search across all of those. So this is one way to do it, but there are other tools that exist that allow you to find items that may be relevant, and one of them is you could have the software to find similar words, so similar responses. So for example, here I will ask for similar sentence, and here I'm starting with a single word. Software will actually go there and will try to find something similar. I don't have a lot of those, Let me try with something else. Okay, computer programmer, why not? Okay, so what I could do, find similar sentence, and now the software, my guess is that I should get more. And you see that it automatically selected all of those that were identical, but then I could decide that, okay, this one is good, this one is good also, and those ones are good. If I find something that is not relevant, I could say this is not good, and I think it's almost all good. So let me probably try that with something else, because this is way too good. I could select all of those and code that as programmer, although if they are not necessarily programmer, they could be operators or scientists or etc. But the idea is that when you select them, then you could tag them, and let me computer programmer. Okay, so this is a quite efficient way of coding, because you actually start with one example and then the software will try to find something else. Let me actually show it this same features, but something a little bit more, bigger. Okay, so for example, I will take that and I will have the software find me similar sentence. So now the software will look at all the responses and look at all those that contain those words, and now I will get a few items here that may be relevant or not. And I'm looking for creativity, for example. I want to have, this is skills, this is not jobs, but they mention something about creativity, but some of them are good, like those ones, okay? But this one is not good, and I may be able to see other ones that are not good. I don't know whether I could find them easily. Creative thinking, yeah, this one is not good. So by giving the software feedback about what is good is what is not good, I can actually tell the software what I'm looking for, and if I search again, the software will tend to bring me better examples. By weighting words differently, the software will come up with new examples, and then I may decide that most of those are good. Let's do a selection as relevant, and now okay, I'll do this quickly, and now I create a code under skills, and I will put creativity, okay, and I will code those. So the query by example is quite useful, because you could actually from the main place here, for example, self-confidence with other people, I could have the software find me similar sentence. But now we have an issue here, okay? We have this, okay? Confident will not be necessarily be related, because there's a spelling mistake, okay? This one, of course, is there because the same word, but I don't have anything about self-confidence. And let me go there, let me focus on that. And I can even be introduce some spelling mistakes. If I search for something like that, it won't give me any results, okay? Or just one. Now, but what I can tell is that I can tell the software that I want to look for, I want to match part of words, not the full words. And by doing that, if I search, what the software will do, if it will first index, then it will try to come with something that looks like that, even if it's not exactly the same. And the thing is that it will actually bring me things that are relevant, okay? So basically, you won't start necessarily with an example that is misspelled, but what you want to do is make sure that you are actually also catching those where people may have misspelled things. So by enabling the fuzzy string matching, you are able to get those even word with the same family, like creation and creativity, if it will match those, because it will partially match those, but also if there's any spelling mistakes, the software will tend to bring those anyway. So fuzzy string matching, quite useful when you are analyzing data with spelling mistakes. Now, one thing that is important is that you could also start it with something that have been coded. So you could tell the software that, okay, I have something about creativity. Let me find something that looks like that. And since I've coded not the full responses, but only some of the responses, the software will actually use all the example I have in my creativity code to help me code the rest of my data sets, and I should get some results. What is important also, let me wait so that you could see the results here. Okay, it will take some time because it actually collected all the example of what I've coded as creativity. Then it will bring me things that looks like that, and most of them should be good because the software actually use the words that are associated with positive examples, and the more often a word tend to appear, the more the higher the weights. So the higher the score should be. The score fits in descending order of similarity. And it tells me that the higher the score, the more likely it is like what I have. One thing that is also important is that you could even start to look at what not has been coded in your project, but in another project. If I click other project, I can have the software to show me things that looks like what I've coded. For example, leadership. Okay, I've coded another project as leadership, and now I can tell the software to bring me things that looks like what I've done in another survey. And this is quite useful because it allows you to profit from the effort that you have made analyzing one survey to analyze a newer survey that may contain similar responses. And it is a great time saver. So if you have done some survey before, this could be a great place to start. If in this case we only give one example, but I could also give non-example. Okay, I'm looking for leadership, but not anything about achievement. So it's quite close. So the software will try to actually weight differently and come up with words that are more specific to leadership and not necessarily associated with achievement. Okay, so it's really a machine learning approach that has been implemented in QD Miner to help you code more quickly. Now, I should show you now probably the most cost-efficient way of coding open-ended responses in QD Miner. And it won't work if you have 30,000 responses, but it will work if you have 200, 1,000, 2,000, and I will try it here on 6,000 responses, okay? And this is what we call cluster extraction, okay? And here I will have the software to do that on jobs, and what the software will do, and let me do on the retrieval, cluster extraction, and again, this is probably the most efficient way of doing that. And I could set it to a specific language, but I will set it to English, or I could leave it as none and it will work as well. And what I will do is I will have the software to cluster all of those and to present those to me not in a random order or in the order of the respondent, but instead it will try to group them by similar items so that I could code them by clusters rather than coding them one by one. And again, this is a example where it works pretty well because it's a very specific question. And here it actually grouped, for example, 4,699 items that are almost identical in 337 clusters. So if I code 337 clusters, I would have coded all of those items, assuming that they are good. And if I look at that, you'll see that, okay, if it put CIO, okay, US Air Force, plumber, pipe fitter, NA, which is quite common one, but I have package handler, freight between job, in between jobs, so may create a category for unemployment, for example, none, okay, okay, disabled, okay, self-employed, currently unemployed, etc. So as you see, the software group them quite quickly into clusters that, if they are good, you could actually code. But before showing you how it works, let me look at the loose one. The loose one will actually cluster more items, 93%. So there are 7% of the items that have not been clustered, but it will actually make some mistakes because you tell the software that you want to be more aggressive in grouping items. So that's the reason why, for example, lumberyard has been put with plumber, because it actually also tried to deal with misspelling. So there's our umber that is actually lumber that is actually matched with those, but because it the software guessed that it's probably not good, you could actually take it and move it out. Okay. Now if I select plumber, and if I want to merge it with that, because I think it's the same thing, I can simply move one on top of the other one, and now I have 7 items in this cluster. Now I can simply drop it on top of new codes, and will suggest to me pipe fitter plumber. Let's simply reduce that to plumber, click OK. Now all of those 7 have been grouped. If I take DNA, I can actually take that, create a new code. Let's keep it at NA, or to say none, okay, or not applicable if I want it, but in this case. So here I just coded quite a lot, and sometime, for example, okay, package handler, mail handler, and FedEx handler. Okay, so that's good, and let's create a new code, and let's keep it to handler here. But sometime you will find that a cluster, especially when you work with loose cluster, will actually contain items that are not relevant, not necessarily relevant, but it will contain, for example, 2 types of responses. I don't know whether I can find it, but for example, let me assume that those at the top are different from those ones. Typically, they will be in 2 different sections like that, so that you could tell the software, let's split that above, and if there was one that goes on the other side, you simply move it there. Of course, here it guessed that it's not okay, but so that by grouping them and moving item, it's easy to code those. Now let me merge them back, because all of those are good, and I can go on like that. None, I do have none, so I can simply double click here or move it there. But sometimes also I may have 2 items that are associated with some code. For example, disable, I will create a code, new code, disable. Then I find that there's something about not employed, so I could actually create the none there. And if I want to also add some codes, I could actually add more than 1 codes here, more than 1 codes here. Now, what happened here is that if it did group together, response that were similar, 97% of those, so 93% of those, sorry, but there's 7% of items that have not been clustered, and they will be presented to me here, and they have not been grouped because they are different enough, and the software was could not actually solve that, and it didn't meet the criteria, but I can now select them and add them to my cluster, so that all of those, including the one that I just bring in, have been move in it. Okay, so in some cases you will see that there are some difference in the way there are some red words. It means that it actually put them together even if they are not spelled exactly the same way. Like here, the self-employed, which is okay. Now we have a good example of someone, okay, not employed. I should probably move that, the unemployed there. All the other ones seems to be good, seems to be associated with self-employed. And if I see something about self-employed here, I could bring it in. And now I could create a new code for self-employed, and let me do self-employed under job. Okay, yeah, if I did put some items under skills, I can move that later. So the idea is that by going to those 300 items and by coding that, it will be much more efficient than going to one by one. And this is probably the most efficient way of coding responses. And the more focused the questions, the most efficient this tool will be. Let me, however, show it to you. Let me apply that. Okay, I just coded 351 items, and I didn't look at all the possibilities I had here. Okay, but let me try to do it on something a little bit more difficult, because there may be some items that are much longer. So I will do the cluster extraction. I will set in this case to English, and I will split those by sentence. So now I have 6,000 responses. I may have, I don't know, 10,000 sentence. Yeah, 9,344 sentence. So now the software clustered them, and it will present them to me in clusters, and I could choose either a tag clusters if I want to be confident, but it is 28% only. I could still bring items that have not been clustered, but I know that it will be, it will take more time. But if I look at this or this, I will get something that should be more efficient. So of course, NA will be the first one. Okay, you're kidding, right? Have been put together. Are you kidding? Just kidding. And again, here, if it's none, in terms of skills, you could simply tag that, but you could look at whether this is relevant. Not really, so let's go on. PvP, I think it's the name of the game. Okay, this is actually people who are coding, who are answering the question, do you develop any online skills, any skills while playing online games? Okay. So that I can look at all the responses, and although if we code less responses, we can see that it actually group, and it allows me to get a good idea of what the text is. So again, I code that. I can add creativity, for example, and now I just coded 38 codes. Okay, so I won't code the full data sets, but this is one example. Once this is finished, I could actually do some frequency analysis, create some charts or word clouds. I can also search from that, retrieve everything about students. Well, every response about students. This was actually done on all 3 responses. So let me take, for example, creativity. I could retrieve the segments that have been coded this way, and I could save that as an Excel spreadsheet or create a text format that will bring all the similar responses associated with one code. Okay, so I won't go into the details. But I could also export, look at code co-occurrence using things like clustering. Here I should probably select all. Let me actually open a different project. Let me save that, because I did a quick coding of this, and let me do a coding co-occurrence, so we will be able to see probably something a little bit more interesting. And it will actually compute. It will show me how things get clustered together. Okay, so people who mention dealing with conflict, talk to people, and patience seems to be things that goes together. Decision making, leadership, and teamwork also tend to be mentioned together. Relief stress, typing skills, no, that's not necessarily the same topic, but as you see, I can actually see a little bit how items get clustered. I could do multidimensional scaling, link analysis, proximity plots, which will allow me to focus on one and see how it is related to other ones. And I could do also crosstab. I have 10 minutes. I need to show you WordStat. WordStat is quite different. WordStat is a text mining tool, and I will do that on the skills here. Okay, so I will go to WordStat. I will want to analyze those 6,000 responses, and the skills is especially appropriate because it contains sometimes long responses. And I could right away look at how it is associated with age group. I didn't transform the other one, so let's simply keep age group. And what I will be able to do is I will be able to quickly, let's forget about that, quickly get a word frequency, and it already gives me some ideas of what the text is about. So that's a different approach, but I could, as a software, to extract phrases. So word frequency is one way to do it, but phrases will be more meaningful. And for now I could see that I have some topics that seems to emerge, like sense of humor, problem solving, teamwork, typing skills. This is part of the question, real life skills and effect on my real life skills. Actually, we found that this is actually quite common by people who say it doesn't it doesn't help me develop real life skills. Okay, typing skills. Okay, so I can right away see some topics, and I can start to create a kind of dictionary where I could move those phrases into buckets. Those are the buckets that I created before, but I could do this also with words. And if I apply my dictionary, now I could look at all the words that have not been categorized. And for example, teamwork should definitely go with teamwork, so I will move that. But what is important here is that I can actually ask the software to help me. And if I look for, say, for example, teaming, it will suggest to me words with the same start, patient, patiently. Okay, so I can select those. And I do have something about patience. Impatient, I'm not sure. So I can take that, and patience, I think it's there. So I'm moving words this way, and I build a dictionary. And by building a dictionary, I can basically automate the coding. And this is a good strategy when actually you want to automate some surveys. So if you have a tracking survey, and if you are doing that on large amount of text and similar questions being asked to similar people, and you get similar responses, it is worth investing in the development of a content analysis dictionary, because if you do that, you will be able to automate the analysis of some of open-ended. And we have some companies who have been using a software since quite some time. They have the same kind of questions that they use for surveys, and they go and now they could actually get 5,000 responses, apply a dictionary, and they will get some response very quickly. Okay, so building a dictionary is one approach, but there are some also exploratory approach that is worth exploring. Is that you could actually, well, first we saw that extracting phrases already give me some insights, but I could have a software to show me topics. And let me actually try to see whether I could get, say, 30 topics. Not 30. Whoops. Oh yeah. I'll do that not on categories, but on the words themselves. And I can have the software. Okay, find me 30 topics, and this is what we call topic modeling, and it attempt to identify what are the topics simply by looking at co-occurrence of words. Okay, so now the software finds something about leading, leadership, leads, team, okay, successful, large groups. Okay, so all of those words are actually associated with something that has been actually named here automatically as leading supergroup. I could rename that to simply type it leadership. Okay, okay, real life skills. Actually, this is not something useful, so I could because this is part of the question, I could delay that. And eye coordination, rename that as NI coordination. Okay, and I can merge items if I think that they go together, and I can also remove items if I think they are not relevant. So this is actually a very quick way to get some ideas about what are the topics in the survey. And we have some people who are analyzing survey data, and they are basically using that only to get information because they have hundreds of thousands of responses by their customer, or even millions, and by doing that they already get a good idea of what people are talking about, simply because the software will extract automatically those topics, and for them that's good enough. But if you want to be more precise, then you may use a dictionary approach. You could actually save that into a dictionary once you have done some cleaning, so you could remove some words if you don't want. For example, this is the name of a game, it's not relevant to the answers, so I could simply remove that. Some other ones, this is also games. and I can merge some of those. Once this is good, I can save that and use that as a dictionary to reapply it later, or maybe change it. Okay, so very quick way to explore things. Another way to explore is to look at co-occurrence of words using clustering, and the software will actually try to show me, no, sorry, not this, but this way. If I reduce that, NI coordination, okay, problem solving. So it brings some phrases, but once I move that, it will start to group them, and I can see that, for example, there's something about creativity which will later be connected to this. So again, this is also one way to extract and get information about what are the topics. Some people will explore in WordStat and then do a manual coding in QDA Miner. Other ones will try to stay in WordStat, either using a text mining approach, especially the topic modeling, which is the most interesting one, and the most powerful one compared to the clustering here. But if you want to be very precise, they will try to build dictionaries. And dictionaries can take more time to develop and validate, but it's really worth the effort when you wanted to measure and automate the analysis of open-ended responses. And there are several tools in WordStat that will help you do that, but I think that that will be, I think that we did mention, I did a webinar for a few months ago about how to build a dictionary in WordStat. I suggest that you look at this, this webinar to learn how to build dictionaries. And once you've done a dictionary, you could actually do a crosstabs. I would do some, for example, percentage of words. I could do a correspondence analysis that will show me how this is related to some variables or some crosstabs, or as well as some statistics. In this case, if I do say a person R, they are properly ordered, so I can do that, and I can see things that are associated with older or younger ones. So those will be more associated with older ones. Okay, and although there may be some exception, it tends to increase. Okay, while this one tend to decrease by age, so that I could explore relationship in many different ways using bar charts, bubble charts, etc. So this is a very quick introduction to WordStat and QDA Miner on how to analyze open-ended. Remember that if you have a small survey, one-time survey, and say less than a few, say less than 500 responses, short responses, or even less than 1,000 responses, QDA Miner has a lot of tools that will help you code more quickly. WordStat could still help you explore, but it will not be as good tool if it's a one-time survey, 1,000 responses, quite short responses. WordStat may not necessarily be the tool to use except for exploratory purpose, maybe to start there and then go back and do a manual coding, because WordStat will give you a very quick overview of what's in there. Now, I also wanted to mention the fact that if you have a small survey of 1,000, but you have that every month, then it may worth an effort to look at WordStat and try to see whether you could develop a dictionary that will allow you to automate the analysis of the open-ended. But for doing so, what I would suggest is don't take the last months, take the last couple of years. The more data you have, the more it will be easy for WordStat to find topics that will be relevant. Okay, so on that, I will go. I will leave the control to Tony, and if there are any questions, I'll try to answer.
Thank you, Norma. Okay, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. We already have one. We already have a couple. One is, this was when you were doing the demonstration in QDA Miner. Is the similarity index on a scale of 1 to 5?
No, it's actually if it's not, if you mean from the cluster extracting tool, no, it's not from 1 to 5. let me show you, because there are two locations where this occur. The query by example, and the query by example, it's not from 1 to 5. It's actually, there's no upper limit, but it's go from 0. Okay, and the higher the number, the more similar it is. Now, if you do that on the cluster extraction, and let me do it quickly. I'll do that on paragraph here. Okay, it is actually a composite score. Okay, and I will show some example. Let me take this one. Okay. Okay, here you have a score of 3, 4. Okay, but let me go down. Okay, so here, okay, so here we have a score that contains actually the integer part is actually, it indicates to you how many words are common to the broad topic. So here we have 2 words, no comment. Okay, but not in this case. We have only one of those. Not is there, but the software doesn't make the correspondence here. So it found that 2 words there, 1 words there. And the last part is actually a similarity index. Okay, the similarity index between all of those among themselves is 0.93 for those, but 0.58 from this one to the other ones. Okay, so the 0.58 is it's a measure from 0 to 1, while the integer part is actually how many words. So when you see some suggestion being presented here, let me try to see. Okay, for example, kidding right here. This one has 2 words. So and they are sorted in descending order. So the first part 2 is actually how many words. So I know that we have 2 words here. So this is the most likely candidate. So that's the reason why it's there, but I can bring him in. The other ones, I know that they only contain one of the 2 words that are in this index. So that's the reason why. And here we have up to 3 words. And I can see that many of them have 3 words also. So I can be quite confident that all of those that have 3 are good. But some others, like team coordination, has nothing to do with NI coordination. So and this is actually for mistake, so I can bring them in. And NI, okay, that's good. So that it allowed me to really see those that could be relevant or not. So all of those talk about coordination, but it is not related to NI coordination, so that I can simply ignore them. So this is for the similarity index for this one. Okay. Other question?
Yep. What languages does the software support?
It actually supports quite a lot of language. We have people who have used it for Russian, so all European language, Russian, English, French, Spanish. We do support Arabic and Farsi and Hebrew. We had some issues because right to left are difficult to support. We fixed some issues recently. We are reviewing that, but otherwise, almost all language. We don't claim we support Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. Those are difficult to support for some reason. But we know that some people did analyze Chinese documents using QDA Miner. For WordStat, I would not even try for Japanese, Chinese, and Korean.
Okay, and another question: do you have a rule of thumb on when you should use QDA Miner or WordStat?
Well, if it's a one-time survey, small survey, say less than 500 responses, and they are short responses, definitely stick with QDA Miner. Even sometime with 1,000 if it's a one-time thing. If you have several thousand, and if the responses are quite long, WordStat could be used as an exploratory tool, even for a small amount, say 500 or even 300, 400, 500. It could use, but not necessarily the tool that needs to be used. But if you have several thousand responses, or if you have a tracking surveys that you do every month or every 6 months or every year, then trying to achieve automation by building dictionaries would be a good way. And if you have a one-time survey with, say, 100,000 responses, I would definitely use WordStat and try to look at a topic modeling extraction tool, because if it can give you a very good idea pretty quickly. It also depends how much time you have and how much resource you have. The topic modeling is a quick and dirty way of getting a good approximation of what are the topic, but it will work best on large data sets. Dictionary will work even on smaller data sets, but it takes time to develop. But on a very big survey, it's worth doing that rather than trying to code those one by one.
Okay, that seems to be all the questions that we have today. Thank you very much, Normand. Just before we go, we did have one person who suggested that we look into zipsurvey.com as a survey platform that we should look at supporting. If any of you on the call have any other suggestions about platforms that you would like us to support, please send us an email. You could send the email to support@provallisresearch.com, which is you can find on the website. And also, if you have any other suggestions about webinars you would like us to cover, different subjects that you would like us to cover with the software, either with WordStat or with QDA Miner, please send us those suggestions. So, because we're trying to have a webinar a month, a webinar every 6 weeks on different subjects that you're interested in us showing you. And also, if this went too fast for you, if you'd like to go back and see something, or if you were distracted by the phone for some reason, it's the session is being recorded, and you can find it on the recording of the session on the website, so you can go back and look at it whenever you would like. So thank you very much. Appreciate it very much, and look forward to having you on future webinars in the next weeks or months. Thank you very much. Goodbye.